Outside of.
Thank you. Another thing maybe we also wanted to have a discussion where you can ask some questions. So I will be a bit shorter than Professor Grönlund. I will try and do this in 25-30 minutes, and you will tell me, Siraj, when I'm getting close, because we really want to have questions from the audience as well. So I will not run through this, but again, I have a very similar advice as Åke had, but from my point of view, and maybe told in a different way. But before I start, I just wanted to know how many of you have written a paper to start with? No one has written, a research paper without submitting it, just written a paper. I get worried when the master students from the government don't raise their hands. Sanna, you have written a paper. Thank you. And how many of you have submitted this paper to a conference or a workshop? Okay, few. And how many for a journal? 2. Did you get accepted? Not yet. Not yet. Yes? Okay. I just wanted to know how many are aware of the process and the agony and the pain involved. For those of you who have submitted to workshops and conferences, did that work out well? No? No. So, I'm going to start by actually introducing the journal, introducing IPID, because I'm on their editorial board these days. So it's a bit of a commercial, but it's but these are also related to my experiences. And then I will talk about getting published, like I talked about. I will not talk so much about knowing yourself and all those psychological things, deep things that Åke talked about. It's more like the process and do's and don'ts. So this, you know about IPID? I would say, I know I sound biased, but this is actually to check out on any IPID community or any people in the field. I would say that this is the highest ranking journal in the field of IPID. I would say there are about 2 more journals which are highly ranked, but they are very different. And I can say, maybe I don't know where you sent it, but there is IPID, Information Technology in International Development, which is also very high ranked, very theoretical, very much about policies and all that. And then we have another good journal in our field, which is Information Systems in Developing Countries, which is not as tough about quality or rigor, how to write a paper, but more practical into things that really matters. I think it's a very good paper. It's probably one of those that have much implications for practice. But they're very different. I would say IPID is actually in between. It's between the policy and the theories and the practice, and with a big ambition to sort of move the field of IPID forward. So I think this is a very good journal, and I'm really looking forward to see you trying to get your paper into this if you're doing IPID research. I brought some of these with me, so you can browse through them if you want to, just to see what the papers look like, paper ones. And just some statistics about IPID then. For one thing, when I say it's a very highly ranked journal, it's been very hard for IPID journals because we are a new field, it's an emerging field, so we haven't been in the top list. But now, finally, just a couple of months ago, IPID was included in the Social Science Citation Index, which is extremely important. This is what counts. This is what your university counts. This is what your professor counts. This is what counts. So finally, we are in. That's important. And then for acceptance rates, it's actually rather high. I was surprised. I checked this with the chief editor the other day when I was preparing for this. And the acceptance rate of paper is 21 to 30%. And it depends on if you write with a regular journal or if you write for a special issue. You all know what a special issue is? Yeah?
sometimes when I'm a yearly event or something happen, then publishing station issue like 20 years of the or something like that. On some events they issue.
Yeah, it can be related to an event, but this event is usually then related to a topic. So it's a very special, you have a special issue on mobile technologies for development.
Certain topic.
Yes, or e-banking or something like that. So it's only about this topic, this special issue. Me and Walker actually had a special issue at the beginning of this year in this. It was about the capability approach, very much development focus, how you can see. I will come back to this. But as you see, there's different acceptance rates for special issues and the regular one. It's higher, it's usually like this, but in this one it's a 30% acceptance rate for special issues, because usually you're targeting, if you want to have a special issue, you also invite people who you know are in the field, who are doing research within this. So you usually get many more matches. I'm saying this as an advice also, if you're a bit, uncertain about your community or which journal, always look for special issues. If they're really into e-health or something, this is where your research is, you have a good chance of getting in there, a much better chance. And then we have very good citations actually. The statistics for IPID is 20 citations per paper, which is actually very good. And that's the average. That means that 20 other authors are actually citing your paper on average if you have a publication here. Because getting cited, like Åke said, is actually difficult. If I track my papers, I usually can find downloads. Like one paper I wrote on ISIS, I think it has like 300 downloads, which I think, great, 300 people are reading this. But when I check the citation, it's only 2 people who have actually cited it. So it's a difference between people downloading, either they think like, oh, boring, or maybe they read it with interest, but they don't cite it in a paper that gets published. So that's also a difference. Yes, then was something, well, I'm not going to talk about it for too long, but I promise to promote this very good journal when I can. It's something that ICT has been criticized for, being in the ICT community, is actually that it costs money. It's quite expensive to, when students have to pay for a journal article. And many of the ICT journals, not all, but many of them are open content, it's free access, which I think is really the way forward. But what they have done instead, or we, I should say, what we have done instead is actually to start up collaborations. So we have this Research for Life. You know about that? It's like it's a NGO which distributes and makes sure that people in developing countries, smaller NGOs, smaller communities, very small schools can get the papers for free, which you otherwise have to pay for. So I think ICD is actually free access in like 5,000 of these organizations. Not enough. Now I'm realizing who's recording this, but this is my opinion. Maybe not enough, but it's at least one way to do it, and it's expensive to publish things. Another thing, just because I say so many good things about this, which I think is problematic, and why I'm addressing you, because you're quite an international audience, is actually that the people who write and get published in this journal is, as you see, 31% is from Europe and 27% from North America. And I'm from Europe, and I'm really interested in this, but what I would like to see, and which I know that ITD and many other people in our community, no matter which journal, would like to see, is actually people from developing countries getting published.
But when we submit a paper, if we will, maybe it will show that we are from Europe, because our university is in Europe.
Yeah, yes, but it's not to do with, it's not like an editor will sit and say, oh, affiliation, or university, good. It's not about that. I think it's about being able, having the tradition of how to write, because all this journal and academic writing is based on a British and American system. And some people have it with, from the day they're born, they get it with the breast milk. And the language, for me, language is difficult. But everyone don't have it, so I would encourage people, and the only way to get good, now I started my good at writing, the only way to get good at writing is to write a lot and revise a lot and get feedback. But here I would like to say, and I know that the other editors of IPID would really want to see, because it is a bit disturbing that people from developing countries, who are supposed to develop the country, are dependent on knowledge which is created by people from Sweden, Norway, England, to get hands on the research about them. It's like a gap. So anyway, readings from IPID is mainly USA, UK, but also India is our third biggest readers. They read it a lot, so that we are happy about anyway. But I'll probably give you some examples from this anyway. How to get published again then, which I call the long and winding road to paper acceptance. And a few of you here have done it, so a few of you know about it. This is a comic, but it's actually a rather. Everyone who's been here, I'm looking at you you know the feeling, I guess, because what you do is you do research which you think is interesting, you write it up in your paper, and usually you're very proud of your paper when you send it in. And here is where I am sending it in, and first I have to get past this associate editor. Was he having a sword? Maybe this is senior editor. This is Sasha in IPID, and then she passes on to me, and I'm saying, And then maybe, okay, maybe there's some substance here. We send it out to review it, and then you meet this guy with a chainsaw and a black mask over his face. That's the negative reviewer.
The last one is very dangerous.
I didn't think about that.
Mr. Death!
Yeah.
Yeah, related.
Yeah. But even though it's a comic, because I'm an author as well, I feel like this. So you can't be too sensitive if you're going to go publishing to that game. You have to be able to take some, beatings with a baseball bat and some cuttings with a chainsaw, because otherwise, you will be useless the rest of your life. But as you see at the end, maybe you'll get there. But you have to get past these guys.
When you read the paper, or when you think yourself you are there.
Yeah, but I do actually. Not so much in, I have to be, criticism is what our society, research society is about, but I would never be like, what? Because, there are very many different reviewers. You can say it nicely, or less nicely, what you think. So, now I'm repeating something what Åke said, but first of all, you're finding your field and you want to find a journal. I wouldn't even start writing a paper, usually not, without knowing where I'm going to submit the paper. Some want to work on it simultaneously, but knowing where you're going to submit your paper is very important. So what I would say is go through the journals in your field. Since I assume most of you are into IPID, I would start browsing through this, looking through IPID and all the others. There are many more, maybe 10, 11, which are quite good journals in the field, and see what do they want, what is their scope. Because like I said before, it's different. If you write to IPID, they say like, we want research paper, policy, implementation, and if you're going to report about some doctors from Bangladesh, maybe you should go to a more empirical journal who are more interested in this. So this is the first step of not getting so beaten, is to actually look at the scope of the journal. What do they want? Then when you develop the paper, it should be in line with the objectives of this journal. Another reason why you have to keep track of the journal that you want to publish it is because you need to read the papers from that journal. Not only because you know, it's also out of courtesy, you know. I'm interested in this journal, I think it's good, but I've never read anything from it. It doesn't give the right message. You have to have some references to that journal, but you also need to read into that journal, because otherwise you might miss out on a big debate that's going on, or old debates that they already left. Right, Sana? I'm into taking examples here, but they've written a paper for a journal and missed out. I'm also involved in this, so we're both in there. I missed out the whole discussion where they already developed theories about what we were writing about, and you know, so relating it to that, it's very ignorant not to do that. And no journal wants to sort of, okay, but you know, you want something that's new or related to what was previously been written. How do I add to this knowledge? You need to add something. So there are no shortcuts, it's just read. Read the papers in the journal they're going to publish a paper in. So when you decided on your journal, then you need to sort of finish your paper or write your paper. And my rules, I don't have this model that Åke have, I'm more simplistic in one way. But I think the only thing you need to do, apart from writing up your research and conducting good research, I assume you already have done some good research, it's actually request feedback and revise. And request feedback and revise. And request feedback and revise. It's the only way, and I've written papers for almost 10 years now, so I'm not only talking as an editor. Sometimes it can be very hard. I used to do that, and really thought, oh, I don't want anyone to see this because I'm not really finished with my thinking. It's not really that good, or I think it's good, I don't want anyone else to say that it's not good. But from bringing in your colleagues or your friends, or when you have IPID workshops, you know, in a friendly atmosphere, just have people sort of criticize your paper. What do you mean by this? I don't understand this. You know, and you do that. So I would say revise, because you're going to revise it after you submitted it as well, but revise before as well. Maybe you can get out of some of the revised ones afterwards. I could continue here. And then when you have gone through this meeting from some of your friends and colleagues, then it's time to submit. And then it's very important. This is boring and tedious task actually, but you need to check the guidelines for the journal. Because people get really irritated on a journal as soon as you don't follow the formats. Everything, you know, the boring things from the, if it's APA or Harvard, you know, how the references should be. How should I send it in? Should I fax it in? Should I put it in the online system? Should I email it? And everything like that. Because you can get, first of all, they can just send it back and say no. It is in the wrong format. We actually do that quite a lot because we don't have time for that. And secondly, it shows that you have actually written the journal. It's also about knowing the journal. But then when you go through this, and this takes time, especially in the beginning, don't underestimate that. You think, oh, I'm finished, I can do that, and you have a deadline. Oh, I need to format it. I would count on a day or two sometimes, depending on how tricky they are, but try and get that right. And then you just wait for a response. And like Åke said, I did a sort of very small warning here. Many academic journals have lengthy wait times, but I think Åke actually showed that quite eloquently. So I'm thinking about if you're a PhD student and things like that, you need to know it. That's where the pressure is. It can take at least a year. If it says 6 months, it can be a year. And that's another advice actually. Talk to people who have submitted papers to the journal. How long it actually takes. Because my experience is that they say like we have a quick review process of 3 months, and it very rarely is. So if your PhD time is running out, okay. Oh, I should be quick, I said. Check with people. Just go to my good advices. Then you get the verdict. After a year, after 2 years, or after 3 years. And this is a bit mean, but this is actually how it feels like, I think. This is not from ITD, this is my personal experience, how I read it when I'm an author. But you either get a reject, and then it's usually, yeah, you know, don't try this again. So it's very tough. But if I, as an editor, if I would reject something for IPID, you know, stop with me, then it would need to be rather bad actually, bad in one or another way. One way can be that it's nothing to do with development. You know, it's totally out of topic. So that's one reject, you know, when send it to another journal. Another thing is if the craftsmanship is extremely poor, you know, and you can't redo the study. It's like, you know, I talked to 3 people I met in Nairobi, and now I say via statistical instruments that this is something that can be said about the whole population of Honduras. Or, you know, there are many, you know, and you can't redo, it's a totally new study because the methodology is so bad. But otherwise, I have much Hogan paper which has flaws, you know. So reject is rather tough, but it can be either it's not suitable for this or it's really poor craftsmanship. Yes, major revision. I wrote this the other day actually when I just got a major revision, so maybe it's not as bad as it seems, but it really feels like, you know, okay, we don't like this, we don't like this, we don't like the content, we don't like the methods, we don't like the theories, but, you know, I'm a bit of a coward editor, so I say major revisions instead of reject. You know, sometimes I think it's better to reject and let people have a fresh start than major revisions. But major revisions can also be a major revision. I was angry when I wrote this. Minor revision is really, really good. If you only get minor revisions, the people, the reviewers and the editors really, really happy with it. Usually what comes out of that is like, you know, yeah, but we want it this way, I like it like this. Then it's usually just about, you know, the taste of the author, or something clumsy mistake you make. But minor revision is extremely good. Then you win, you know. And if you will get accept directly, then it's just like, wow, this is a masterpiece, unless it's a journal that's closing down or something else. So what do you do after that? Revise, 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 revise. And by here you're very bored with your own paper. But it's, there's no way around it. It's just revise, revise, revise. That's pretty well. Best advice before I finish this. This is actually for editors. Now I know I don't think anyone is an editor here now, but most likely some of you will become an editor. If you write for a paper and you go, first they call you up to be a reviewer. And that's not, it's a big honor, but it's also like reviewers are hard to get by, you know, because it takes time. So that's very likely, but you can also become an editor. And what I do, my best advice to keep going as an editor is to use serious good reviewers. Without the reviewers, I can't manage. So what we do in IPID is actually to rank the reviews. We rank them in their own time and how helpful their comments were. And here I can see that it says PhD students are usually much better, and master students. I use master students as well as reviewers because it's so thorough. And so it's so thankful when you as an editor. You send it out to some professor, or someone, they say, well, it's good enough, period. Not all of them, but you know, it happens. You know, they're very short, but it's lengthy. So this is what I need. And then I need to work together with the other editors because you're rather on your own. This is another thing I said, do not be afraid to reject. Do not be afraid to require many revisions. That's why I write this revise, revise, revise. This is the most interesting thing for me as an editor, just having been on the other side, is actually to see how papers improve. My God. And that's about not being biased, because sometimes I can get in papers, good, well-known authors, or papers I just think, oh, this is going to be so good, you know. But then, you know, you ask them to revise and not much happens. And then some papers which I didn't have much hope about, in getting constructive feedback, you know, they get very good. So this revise, revise, revise. For our special issue actually, we had maybe 18 papers, we could only select 4. And I was quite sure which 4 papers would go into this. And maybe one of them did. But many of them changed during the process, because people don't change or it doesn't improve. So you should have an open mind to start out with what people can do from feedback and in revising. This one, maybe you can't read it. This is just to show you that it's what it's like. So you shouldn't drop dead if you get a reject, and not be overbold if you get a publish either. This is actually an authentic case from me being an editor, even though I cut the text in IPID. I send out the paper, which I think is rather interesting, but it needs something, and I get 2 reviewer comments back. One says, publish. This is an interesting piece, substantial contributions to the IPID project in developing countries. Question proposed are relevant, persisting in the field of studying, theoretical framework applied in the article is appropriate, etc., etc. And I go like, oh, they were very positive, I liked it, but And then I read the second one, reject. This paper lacks structure, depth, research rigor. Also, this paper makes some assumptions about blah, 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 without proper critical reflection, etc., etc.
On the same paper?
Yes, this is the same paper. And
it's not directly.
yeah, it's not always like this. In the best case, it's usually between major or minor revisions and things like that. So I'm not saying that this is what it's like, it's only a lottery. But this actually happens, and I think it's important to know that as an author, because it depends who's reviewing your paper, what they think. In this case, I have to make a decision, or put it out on bringing more reviews also, But in the end, the people who are reviewing your paper are just ordinary mortals. It could be anyone with different preferences or what they think is good research, etc. And that's why you need to only bring in the good reviewers. Yes? Owen. So this is for you then. So far you are authors. First one, get to know your community. And you have here that in your heads when you go home. And it's journals. It's no way around it. Read up on the journal. Relate your research to ongoing debates. Always respond to reviewers and editors in a humble manner. I've seen cases where this does not happen, and I'm so eager myself sometimes to write like, but you don't understand, you baba idiot. But instead you write, oh, thank you for pointing this out. It really made me reconsider, blah, 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 because that's the tone, because if you have a very bad attitude as an author, you're quite dead within that journal. So even though it hurts, you have to be like that. This one, yeah, do not become disheartened, it's a game. This is just something I said because maybe I'm telling myself, because I get hurt every time they criticize what I'm doing. And I feel like, oh, I'm a bad person, or blah, 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 blah. But you have to be like, yeah. It's a game, it's a publishing game. So I think it's good actually to, if you can keep a bit of distance to your own research and to your papers. Sounds hard. Revise, I already said. I will say this one first. I actually asked some of the reviewers I've used for IPID, and I said, what is it that gives a bad impression and what's important? And they agreed to this, but this was something I hadn't thought about. 3 of the reviewers I talked to just before coming here said that, tell them to proofread the text. It's so simple, so I forgot about it. But they said that when it's table 2 and then table 4, when it says in the text 47% said, and then in the table it says 42%, it's those minor, and all 3 of them actually said like, you get so irritated, so you're in a bad mood and you don't like the paper. So these silly, stupid mistakes, make sure you don't make them, because it puts people off to start with. This one, well, I wanted to address just because it's in IPID, language problem. That's another thing that irritates people, and which actually, sometimes it just brings down the overall impression, but sometimes, the comprehensibility gets low. You don't understand. And this is what I'm saying, we have a problem. It goes for us Swedes as well. We're not British natives, and we're not Americans. It's not like we just, la 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 la, we're struggling with English usually. And the words, and making everything. And I think this is one of the reasons why we have problems getting published. And I say we now, non-native speakers. In other farm, I think it's only Åke now are quite good in English. Your PhD students and everyone, writing English. Yeah. And if you're not good in English, get help, for God's sake. There's so much good research, I think, to read. And you read it and, whoa, but I don't understand what it means. And it's strange languages, and you shouldn't let language be a problem, when you have something important to say. Because after all, that's what research is about. You have found something, you want to explain something, and in our field we want to do something which actually makes the world a better place. So I mean, you have the purpose. So don't let this 47%, oh I forgot, and the language being away. So smaller things, but very important things. And I think I will just, I don't know, I just realized Holy Trinity is a Christian thing, isn't it? Sorry. But I was just thinking what this is actually about. It was just a vision that got in my head when I was trying to explain the game. It's the authors, it's the editors, and it's the reviewers. We are all like, in getting something published, we're dancing. It takes two to tango, but to get a paper published, it takes three people. So this is the vision process, the understanding process, everything. This is, remember, this is actually what, these 3 parts is actually what constitute the research field and decide what goes and what's relevant for the field. And I think, Siraj, yes, yeah, quick, fast advice, right? But I also actually printed some old-fashioned paper things.